All right, I do believe we're live. If you can hear us, let us know. This will be a live video. So, happy Halloween for those of you that enjoy Halloween, and happy fall for those of you that do not enjoy the holiday. Um, to start off with a few introductions, real quick, my name is Jay. I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com, and today's live video is about housing for those of you that are disabled and those that are seniors. I'm going to wait a few minutes for a few people to show up before we get into this. I have posted a couple links in the video here. These are links to our website and so on. And again, for those that don't know, I've been doing this for about 22 years. We're registered here in Texas. We've had a stellar reputation, hundreds of reviews. We've never had a single issue I can think of over the years. So moving on from that, you know, one of the bigger things that we deal with as a company is trying to assist those that are disabled mentally, physically, and also those that are just simply retired and seniors. Sometimes people work and they're married, and then one of their spouse or their wife dies, and maybe there's not enough planning in place for retirement. That might be a situation where you need housing, and you can't afford to pay these astronomical rates. We watched a very interesting 3 years in the U.S. Pandemics, inflation, questionable a questionable period where we might be in a recession. I know we're going up 3/4, just with the Feds in the next few days. Again, so it's a tough market. Then there was a housing shortage. The housing shortage turned into price gouging, and then and lots happened in this nation, right? That brings a lot of people that ordinarily would never depend on the system into the system. And through that pandemic, we tried to evict about 40 million people. That put a new kind of crunch in the market. And as we watch this played out over the last couple of years, one thing is for sure that as all this is played out, we see the market is now starting to turn around. So let's talk about that a little bit. And again, this is a live video. You can comment for those of you that are on your TV, your phone, or whatever device you're using. This is a live video. You can ask whatever questions you would like as long as it's in relation to this. So, one thing that I'm starting to see is that, during the summertime is the most difficult time. So think about this: January, February, March, you have April, May, June, July, and August. 5 months, it's horrible. Those 5 months are when everybody preferentially needs this kind of service. They like to move. Everybody likes to move during that period. And so the system is at its peak and trying to get it. Now, when September through March happens, the holidays, that means we're in the best time of season in principle to get the kind of services we need. For many of you, that's vouchers or Section 42, Section 811, NED, which is non-elderlies, Section 811, disabled but not elderly or 62 plus. And there are many subsections. I could go into a little under 100, and that doesn't include project-based or tenant-based housing. So I'm gonna say hello to a few people that have commented in the channel. I don't expect a big wondrous crowd today because I'd imagine many of you have stuff you're doing with family. For those that are still young and still like to enjoy the holidays and Halloween, and I know I'm going to enjoy it when I get off this video. So LL comments, "Hi Jay, how are you doing this afternoon?" Dorothy Henley, "Hi, great information." Well, thank you. Just getting raked up here. So if you're disabled, one of the things that you should be trying to consider is, if you need housing and you need it at a better cost, then you have two things I would say to consider. Subsection 811, which is a subsection of Code of Federal Regulation, which would allow the funding of a voucher for a person that is both low income and disabled. And for those of you that are 62 and older, then I'd say with inclusion of disability, you would consider Section 202 of Code of Federal Regulation, which would fund a mainstream voucher for you. Of course, there are many variations of vouchers in what they do or how they're funded under Code of Federal Regulation, and of course, how it's prescribed under Title 24. Looks like we've got John 316. Hello from New York. Good afternoon, New York. So, as an interesting fact, guys, just drop the bomb real quick. California and New York represent roughly 60% of my clients. It's wild. And actually, Florida's taken up about 15%, and then all other states. The only state that's not gracing me very well is probably Maine. I guess they've already figured it out there. I don't know. Now, one thing I want to bring up real quick, guys, while we're waiting for you guys to ask questions, because a lot of people like to watch to see whether or not the information I'm going to provide is going to be valuable, or will I be like some of the actors that you see on YouTube? They're expert at fidget spinners one day, the next day they're experts at soil, and then today they're the master consultant with a triple PhD in housing. Yet they've never functionally been able to hold a job at Taco Bell. That's a lot of the information you see on YouTube. Okay. For most of you know that I've seen more than 600 plus videos over the last decade that I've made, not including a lengthy history with working with clients up to 1,000 a year. I probably have read every piece of legislation, every operational manual, policies, procedures, data, COC manuals, algorithmic data, okay, director's reports, and everything issued by HUD. Now, you remember this, that as we go on each year, fundamentally, all these policies and procedures may be underwritten by other colleges and also by companies like Nan and McKay. So you're talking about a wealth of information that continually changes. And each new election, we send HUD in a different direction, right? That means that's a lot of learning. But to allude to the primary factor of what all this means to you and those of you that are disabled and seniors is simply this. One, you need to do this in the right time of the market, and that would be now. Okay. Now through the new year, which is a new federal budget, and all the way through March is the golden time. Number two, for those that don't know, the United States government issued the largest number of vouchers and flooded the market, probably in U.S. history. 20,000 were issued starting October 1st. If you've been sitting on the sideline wondering about housing, now is the absolute time. You're in the right time of the season. You got 20,000 vouchers. The third golden factor that rarely happens when all the stars line up is the fact that HUD has now looked at the last 3 years of a pandemic, inflation, and other issues, and is readdressed what they call FMRs, fair market rates, which means fundamentally the same voucher you were thinking about early this year would potentially be worth a lot more now. They've adjusted for the pandemic. That means a lot of areas are seeing spikes between 20 and 60% increases, which means it's more reasonable for both the tenant and the landlord. Let me make another factor clear for those that are disabled and seniors. You're already of highest consideration, but the problem is, here's a problem with all this good news. You're not the only one. Seniors and disabled represent over 90% of every list of every housing authority. There's nothing unique about that. You have to stack additional preferences. So what are preferences? If you think back when you were young, for those of you that drink and went to the club, right? Preferences is when people prefer. You have certain preferentials. Being a veteran, being a senior, being disabled, being a domestic violence victim, having other issue. All these preferences pull from different subsections of Code of Federal Regulation, okay? They're all fun in different ways. The more of these strings you can attach to that perceived voucher you want to get, the more chances you or opportunities you have to get that voucher. I preach this widely. It's very well understood at this point. Stacking a lot of different preferences ultimately yields a lot of our clients vouchers in phenomenal time. As an example, in the past 60 days, I've had at least 19 cases where people have been told, and they'll come to me the first day when they work with our company. Oh, yeah, it's 15 years. I've heard this drama, blah, blah, blah. Sally down the street with one flip flop on her foot said it's 98 years to get a voucher. What makes your company any different? That's that moment where she shuts her, discovers that she was absolutely wrong. That's the thing. If you're going to take it Bob down the street that don't know shit about the system, then you should expect that in return. The fundamentals of the system, how it works for those seniors and disabled, is simply this. Besides those good preferences, being able to go to a number of different counties, you don't necessarily have to get a voucher specifically in your city. There are a lot of reasons that are granted under federal law why you could get a voucher in Alaska but live in Hawaii and then initiate portability immediately. Do you think that the housing authority wants to advertise it? No, they'd be running a building. These are the fundamentals that a consultant like myself must know. Call them loopholes. But do you see Congress is going to hold session about housing and vouchers? No, they're not going to change the rules. So it's my job to fundamentally walk people through those. You will call them loopholes, the back door, whatever you need to. Uh, for instance, if you got a housing authority in Iowa and it's in a cornfield, and all these big ranchers, they're corn, they don't need any vouchers. So the HA, they're sitting there, they're flush with them, a drawer full. Let's be real. Nobody issues paper vouchers anymore. It's all digital or request for tenancy, but they can issue quickly, right? And in a lot of cases, they'll allow portability. Now, a lot of my clients have been hitting Iowa pretty hard, and eventually that state and its HAs will get used to it. And then, the love of the game will be over. That would be a good example of New Jersey, New York, when a lot of my clients and other people perceive Pennsylvania as being a weak state. And they went after that intentionally for about a year and a half and more to stay out. Now, the housing authorities are very familiar with that process, and they currently try to deflect that type of behavior. So that's what happens when you do it too much. Now, that's not all. I mean, clearly, we're only speaking in small terms. It doesn't mean that the information I'm sharing is effectively enough for you to set your flip flops on fire and then roll down the street to the HA and hope. And when I say HA or PHA, I mean Housing Authority or Public Housing Authority. There's so many acronyms that we've devised over the last 80 years of HUD and Housing Authority's history that I could write a small booklet, a dictionary of acronyms. So, one thing, if you're a senior and disabled, you should also put on your agenda is, like grandma used to say, for those of you who know the old saying, don't put one egg in one basket, addressing more than one system. People fundamentally believe that housing authorities are the only place you can get a voucher or that it is federally subsidized voucher. It is not. The housing authority is one place. Section 42, when the landlord enters into agreement for 50 years with HUD and creates subsidies, which is an allocation of a certain number of units in a property, then that's called tenant-based housing, not to be confused with project-based. Okay? Section 42 is a great option for the disabled and also those of you that are seniors, especially when you go down to city planning and development in the city and you find out when the next building's going to be built and you make sure that your car or your bus is the first there before they even market it. So you have every opportunity. So that's system number 2. System number 3 that I have literally been trying to teach you guys for 5 years straight, because we're all stuck on that. It's kind of stupid thing where housing authorities have convinced people of a lot of things. Just like when you, as an example, you call housing authority. So you call, can I apply? Well, sure, we have a 15-year waiting list. Would you like me to get out my ink pen right now and then take your application? So what did that do mentally to you when somebody says something like that? It doesn't mean it's real. And that little person working there that day that answered that phone and said that to you had one objective, just to do what they were trained to do. And that's called thinning the herd, a process of purging people mentally. You hear the word 15 years. If you're like me, then probably a few obscenities roll through your mind and then you want to hang up on that person, right? So it works. It works very well because people take so many things at face value. Look, none of my clients have ever waited 15 years. I get people call, I've been on a list 20 years. Well, honey, you must have said the worst thing possible and you had no fundamental understanding of anything. You marched in there with your dollar store pen and you started filling out a bunch of trash on there, checking all the wrong boxes. Each one of those, you look, the difference between checking the right boxes and unchecking others could cost you 5 or 10 years. I've had people that have retired engineers. Oh, I've got this. I've got a really big IQ. I'm gonna handle this. I'll call you back later. Okay, you call me back later. Call me back later in tears. You're not the smartest person in the room. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. A lot of people are intelligent. Housing authority, its policies, its procedures, its data, its standards do not operate in a logical fashion. You cannot, and I repeat this to you guys, you think you can run around YouTube and Google and get a straight answer. They've had 80 years to convolute this. When you read the whole system, you go through 100,000 pages of data. You stand back from it, you realize that there are 2 things that are very much present. One, a system to misdirect. And then you combine that with extraordinarily low-paid employees that are angry and upset, and they're manning the phone. And what you result in is most people yielding nothing. Even the most, I can't even really think of any exceptional cases where people called and said, Jay, I managed to defeat it, just the same way that you have as a company. It took a long time. It took a lot of test dummies in the beginning because a lot of theories had to be tested. If there's a loophole, does it work? Can we not only identify it, can we reverse engineer it? If we reverse engineer it and we see a gaping hole, are we able actually to effectively act on it? And then are we successful in actually probing and getting through that system? And then we give the client what they need, right? So if you understand how everything's structured, like an attorney represents a person that's been convicted of murder, and you want to get that person off, then you have to understand the system as a whole through it. Because when you start seeing the exceptions, then you're able to help your clients build their case. I told one lady, I said, if you're not legally blind on a Monday and I need you to be legally blind on a Friday, then you need to match the plot and the course of which HA is asking for. And if we know those specific factors and you become those specific factors, you acquire those specific factors, you will yield a voucher. Okay. Is it easy? Is it a gigantic pain in the ass? Absolutely. It's designed by virtue to be so. Why? Because they know half the people give up. The other half will give up the minute they get somebody rude on the phone. They don't understand why it's not. They're not talking to Macy's customer service. These people will, by design, get on that phone to talk shit to you. I'd remind you again, folks, a lot of people think these are good professional people at the HA, that they're going to sit there and do prayer circles and be friendly and all that shit. They don't give a damn whether you get anything or not. You either have your facts straight, you know what you're doing, or you get body slammed, and that's probably the last time you'd want to deal with the system. Okay? Let's make no mistakes. I've been doing this too long. All right, I'm going to roll down and answer some questions. I'll see a few things that roll through here. Shirley Bryant, thank you for sharing that. Glad I could share for Halloween, right? John 316 gives me 2 thumbs up. I appreciate that. Jelly Bean Junction, I like that. Interesting name of the day. Hi, Jay. Thank you for what you do, and I appreciate that, you being the first person today, or one of the first to thank me. I often view my job as a pretty thankless one. People get a voucher and they move on. Do you think they actually stop and look back and thank you? Almost never. So Jelly Bean goes on to say, hi, Jay, thank you for what you do. I have learned a lot from your videos. I do have a question. Can you receive a voucher from more than one HA at a time? Absolutely. I would say that you're pushing that federal line if you were to continue to try to apply in multiple states at a time, 2 or 3 or more, okay? Then it becomes suspicious because of the old 80s game between Jersey and New York. Get a voucher in New York, catch the train, go to Jersey, get a voucher there, rent an apartment, and then sublease it for cash. That went on for a long time because we had an antiquated system out there. And it would allow people to have apartments and be on welfare in multiple states at a time, especially when they're all close together like they are on the East Coast. So I would say that probably registering applications at more than 2 states at a time would probably be a big red flag. Okay. But yeah, we fundamentally as a company, we go through 50 different counties, 50 counties with 75 housing authorities in 30 days. And that's just one client. If we can't get it in zip code 78881, then we're going to continue to move forward. Okay. Because I only need the voucher to have portability instantly. It wouldn't make a damn to me if it was in Puerto Rico we got the voucher. A lot of people believe that, I can only do it at the housing authority that I can walk my slippers to down the street. That's not true. Oh, they won't give it to me because I don't live in that zip code. I don't live in that state. I don't live in that county. That's not true either. Okay. You see, when you start looking at that, now that opens up the whole U.S. And then you're you're dealing with HAs, you're dealing with Section 42, and you're dealing with the third one that I didn't bring up. I got into a tear talking, is the Continuum of Care Housing First program that carries housing choice vouchers, but they're emergency HCV, or the emergency housing voucher, used to be issued by housing authorities, but fundamentally that's the housing voucher change. They're now relegated down to continuum of care. You don't know what a continuum of care is? Look it up. I've made hundreds of videos about it. By the time most of you people look up on Google, you'll just run into another one of my videos. Google's got lots of my videos. It quite enjoys my videos because they're accurate. All right, let me get back to these questions here because y'all are starting to build up big old paragraphs. So I think I answered that one for Jelly Bean. I moved down to Sonia Grinstaff. Good afternoon. How are you? Happy Halloween or happy fall? Hi, Jay. Just logged in and wanted to say thank you for all the educational videos. Because of your videos and the two consultations, I'm now holding a voucher in San Diego, California. Just so y'all know, that's not a paid actor, okay? I don't do that. My channel has never produced a high level of people because nobody thinks, oh, gee, it's Halloween. Let me get on YouTube and then be entertained by a middle aged white dude making videos about Section 8 vouchers. It's an uninteresting topic, except for those that need it, right? So, but if as I've always said, if I was a 10-year-old, I was willing to spray paint my hair hot pink and then set my bicycle on fire and ride it off a roof, that child will make millions of dollars and get trillions of views within 30 minutes. Let me address an issue that's serious where we actually solve a housing crisis and then you get nothing. No love from YouTube, but that's all right. I'm not here to be the next Cindy Crawford, okay? I'm here to educate. It makes a little damn to me if people visit or not. Most people will visit eventually when they get tired of trying to do it on their own. Um, so I'm glad to hear that, Sonia. And Sonia is a previous client, and I quite enjoyed that relationship with her. I think that roughly about 30% of the people that come and visit usually come for the spicy videos where I tend to be I keep it professional, but then I sew in profanities in the video sometimes as a way to, well, not to entertain, because sometimes I just really want to say what's on my mind about specific housing authorities or laws. Okay, and I believe that using profanities in some videos is a great way to express that emotion. Okay, I think there is an appropriate way to use it, although it may not be that Christian for those of you that are God fearing and all things. But I'm not going to change the spice of the channel. I'm sorry. This is already a mundane topic. We have to put something spicy in the video. Moving on. John 3:16, sharing is caring. Thank you for sharing this information. Well, thank you, John. Dorothy goes on to say, what is the best way to qualify for Section 202 program? Well, the best way to qualify is to be 62. That's the first way. Number two, have a mental or physical disability. Make sure it's a well qualified mental or physical disability, and then I think you're on the way. And that alone by itself should get you qualified. But what's going to put you in front of the list? What's going to make your old self look more attractive as a client to that housing? What's going to want them to give you a voucher in a couple of months compared to the other 98,000 people that can claim the same thing? That's the focus you want to consider. But I do appreciate the question. I'm going to take a sip of coffee, guys. We're on a little tear today. So take a brief. I'm going to take a breather for just a moment, which means I'm going to move from business to personal business. As many of you know, I rescue cats and have done so for most of my life. I have 22 at current. Those numbers go up and down throughout the year. And as many of you know, I've been on my community page, because YouTube has got a page in everybody's channel that's called community, at least if your channel's big enough. And it's kind of like a Facebook where you can post things in a photo, right? So I've been posting about my kitten that came from one of my other cats. Been very sick. We had a very nasty respiratory infection spread through our herd of cats. And I want to let you guys know, for those of you who are following that, she's doing well. We, in total, 7 trips to the veterinarian, about $2,000. She's alive. She's seeing through her eyes. She's still infected. And it's a lot like life. The cats that were most affected were those that were old and the very young. And I've learned a powerful lesson this year after this infection rolled through our herd of cats. My young and my old will now, when I start seeing that stuff start to spread, I will pull the young and the old out of my herd and bring them over to a friend's house to survive the 3 weeks, ride it out. My cats had no immunity because we moved. And these new alley cats were carrying these very deadly disease, and it spread through my herd very quickly, and they have no immunity. Now, they've had this stuff before to light note, but they had immunity against it from the version where we used to live. So that is the update. All the cats are alive. Moving down on questions here. Dorothy Henley goes on to say, can a voucher be applied in an already rent subsidized apartment one lives in? so long as the landlord is already participating or is willing to participate under section 42, or if they want to enter in a HAP contract with the local HA, which is giving over your direct deposit information, making sure that they're not going to violate your federal, civil, and other rights, then you're fine. Moving down to Sonia Grinstep again. Haha, no, I'm far from acting. Good. Senior Cynthia, how are you doing? You're right, 1000% appreciate that. Seems like some of these comments are a bit delayed, so it may be in response to the things I said. So, Shook Shields, thank you, Jay. You have a reasonable accommodation for a particular side of town, but can't find anything for a voucher amount. What can I do? Sometimes, if a market is too brutal, okay, as an example, California, Los Angeles, and Orange, I recommend to people as the clock ticks down. First of all, let's dissolve one misconception. Vouchers could, under certain rules, be extended all the way 6 months. Okay, it just requires a quick little ER visit. There are lots of clever ways. I've always suggested to you guys, if you're going to play the game, and if anybody here is under any delusion that going out and getting a voucher is not a game, then why do they call housing authorities when they want to give out vouchers? Why they call it a lottery? If you don't want to consider it a game, then why are we relegating it to the word lottery where it's a game, right? If you're going to play the game, you have to play to win. And in order to play the game and win, you might as well play to win. I would say to you that you need to understand the rules and have a backup plan. And because housing authorities are interesting. They wait for you to put in a silly request to something they already have the answer to. The thing is, once you put it in, but you weren't apprised of your rights, then they could say, well, you've already requested. So sorry we didn't teach you about all the rules. Had you known that, you probably would have got it, but so sorry you're not going to. That's where a lot of you guys fail, because you, as an example, you deal with a housing authority. It's a lot like dealing with the police. You get pulled over, you get beat up, then you drive your car with your two black eyes, you go down to the police station, and guess who is the person that's going to investigate the cop that beat you up? The very person that beat you up. The housing authority is not going to teach you anything. It's not their job. Their only job is to qualify you for a voucher or get rid of you, preferably the first, get rid of you. Okay? They're not going to teach you rules, policies, procedures. They're not going to teach you how to do a damn thing. You'd be lucky if you get 2 minutes of time on the phone. Okay? And then you roll around the halls of Google. Let's talk about Google. 98% of the articles I have read are almost 10 years old, and HUD's not even the same system. Neither are HAs. Even if that information had been correct on Google or most of the silly videos that I see, here's the problem. Every housing authority operates independent under their own policy. In other words, they take a boilerplate policy from HUD itself. They follow that guideline. They construct their policies, procedures, and data manuals around the local market. So even if that advice was consolidated, it means you'd have to be in this like I am. You would have to virtually keep manuals on around 2,800 housing authorities that operate all separately. Yeah, there are some things that parallel, but most of it is not. So that advice that from Sally, that was a fidget spinner expert yesterday that made that video, Sally unfortunately is giving you advice about her housing authority and her zip code, and so her advice is completely fucking useless. Okay, that's the problem, with YouTube. You get people, they wonder, they know what to do. They hop on the YouTube, they hop on Google real quick, they research some garbage articles that have been respawned by algorithms, and then they go make a video and they pretend to be a consultant. Okay, that's what all this is. There's not a single person on YouTube that's actually qualified to even do what I do. None. Zero. And you've got people that are writing books about bullshit. You've got people that are running little programs and subscriptions to hell. You got another guy that's, well, I'm not even going to get into that because I'm not allowed to do that on YouTube. But you see my point. These people have never fundamentally even worked in the field. And they give advice, okay? So watch yourself out there. Shook Shields, thank you for the reason combination because out of town. Can't find anything about your amount. What can I do? So let me get back to that question to Shook Shields. I would suggest portability, my friend. If you can't get what you need fundamentally in a market that's too hot or too crazy, then you might consider portability to the next county over where you would be able to accommodate and use that voucher, okay? Pumpkin Spice. Now, I like that name, and that fits very nicely for our Halloween video, or for those of you that would enjoy calling it the fall video. Okay, I realize that religious pretense does sometimes separate videos, so Halloween or fall, however you prefer it. So Spike Pumpkin says, "I'm glad your kitty cats are doing well. You gotta love cats. You gotta love how many I have in my office and in my home. And an average night, I probably suffer from every neck pain possible. I have a minimum of 6 cats that are swirled up in the bed with me. Okay. So I think a lot of people come to the realization I might be the crazy cat lady, except I'm a guy, right? Who else would have 22 cats? That I'm possibly neurotic in many potential ways. To be honest with you, to own 22 cats, you have to be slightly nuts, anyways, right? Just means I quite enjoy it. And I think a lot of people enjoy it because we all relate as pet owners, right? All right, Chuck Shields. So, can I ask about you to be increased? Well, Sugar, I'm not quite sure the way you framed that question. Could you re ask again? Tammy Williams, if you are a senior or disabled, can you get housing faster? That is the original design and intent of Clearly. I believe possibly. It really does depend on the level and skill of the person that understands the system and how well they administer it. If it's you doing your own application, I'm not sure. You would have the same shitty chance as nearly every other human. However, you already have two built in preferences. You're a senior and you're disabled, right? So that gives you a little bit, but the rest of the application also matters. Dorothy Henley. So the 202 program is only for mentally and disabled individuals 62 and older. That is correct. If you're not looking for that, then you're looking for a NED, NEED. For those of you who don't know what a NED is, look it up. NED. So it'd be a NED voucher or Section 811. Look that up. Same thing. Trick Shields, I can't find something on that side of town with my voucher. Can I ask for an increase? Yes. And what you're gonna one minute, let me tell you the back door answer to that. Okay, Shug. So housing authorities are going to consider they base the vouchers on the amounts that are issued by the housing authority, right? And HUD mainly. So HUD mandates how much apartments and rents can be charged. Same thing goes with vouchers. That's what they call them, SAM fares or FMRs or fair market rates, and that's a close parallel to also with the value of the voucher. And then of course there'd be accommodations built in. I would suggest to you that it is a negotiation because a housing authority, when they issue a voucher, which is a piece of paper you might call a request for tenancy, it would indicate how many rooms and the value of it. Okay. And that's going to be very closely followed by FMRs. Now, you might be able to negotiate up or down 17% on that. So if they tell you 500, then you might be able to reluctantly get them to agree to about 17% more value of the voucher, or they can negotiate it lower. Okay. That's about all you're going to be able to do. The only way to cleverly address the situation is take that voucher, move it somewhere where you know the rents are higher. Okay. And what I mean by that is sometimes you have to find a property before you find the voucher. Again, reverse engineering. Outside of that, as you know, landlords can raise rent every 6 months. In some states, they can raise it every year. You should also be matching the same plot and course by making the same requests. There's not a special form for this, guys. You talk to your caseworker, you make the request, and of course, it'd be better that your attorney issued a demand letter to frighten them a little bit into considering that option for you. But as far as you just picking up the telephone and making a request that way, as I've always told you guys, the telephone is a worthless piece of trash, not admissible in any way without a wiretap and a warrant. So you need to make sure whatever your request you're doing, always by letter, by email, and certify with a tracking number. Okay. Otherwise, nobody has to even say that you've even done so, that you made that request. And most housing authorities will just giggle and then hang up on you when you make that request. Always try to handle your business by mail. Always have a tracking number. And please don't require signatures. USPS is terrible and they will not do it. Okay. So that's just some quick advice. You just have to make the request. Taking another sip of coffee here. All right. Beyond that, put it out there this way. So we talked about the many different ways that you would likely be able to adjust, kind of getting a voucher, and we also talk about the market as a whole right now. So we have a flood of vouchers. We're in the right season. Things are cool. The housing market's starting to slowly go off the cliff. So I'd say a lot of you guys, if you're on the fence about this stuff, go out and try to do it yourself. If you fail at it, then I would advise probably working with a consultant. My job in these videos is not to shake the loose change out of anybody's pockets. If you can't get it done, or if your work and your research results in a 15-year wait, then maybe it's time to call somebody that understands how to do that. Okay, that's all I'm gonna suggest. There's lots of consultants. I mean, you've got boys and girls all over YouTube that you know love to give out advice. So um, we post all of our licensing, bonding, insurance, state filings, secretary of state filings, so on. 200-300 reviews. We have no DOJ reports. We've never no liens, holds, judgment, FBI, DOJ. Our company's got a clear background from day one, so it's never changed. So it's a considerable option if you're still failing to get what you need out there. For those of you that are constructively suffering through a situation where you're fixing to lose your apartment, you're fixing to face imminent homelessness, I would say swallow your pride. The word homeless comes with a lot of caveats. Anybody can be homeless at any moment. A tornado could blow through or destroy my entire life, and by virtue, I would be what they would be considered as imminently homeless, which means that eventually I will not be able to pay my rent, pay my mortgage, and then I have to consider other options. There are potential ways I can likely get most of you guys that are very close to almost being homeless, given that you cooperate and allow me to guide you, probably get you a voucher in a little over 30 days. Does that mean it's going to be a top tier triple diamond voucher? No, there's many different types, but it certainly would absolve you from having your hair fall out from stress. But again, you can wander around YouTube and Google and then see if you can wreck your life trying to figure it out. I didn't get good at what I did till about 8 years in, and that was 22 years ago. So this is not a quick reading pamphlet to get a thorough understanding. And even if you understood it, you read it all, then you'd have to be able to actually administer it and be successful at it. And even if you were successful, you'd be able to administer it and produce the same result. In other words, proof of concept. So I'm not trying to discourage anybody. I'm just saying consider all your options in this market, because when March or April next year rolls around, we're going to move into a market where all these vouchers are on the market are going to dry up. And then we have a bunch of people scrambling this summer, and it won't be anything to get. Okay, the same warnings I give every year. You're still in that grace period all the way to about March, late March of next year, and then it's going to turn bad. Okay, because there's not going to be a re-upping of 20,000 vouchers. They're not going to suddenly up the FMRs again. The demand's not going to go down; it's going to actually go up, probably by double. So that's what to tell you guys, consider all your options, do everything you can out there in the market to get the answers you need and try to get it done. And if you can't, that's fine. When my car is broke, I don't run down the library, go get a book and pretend to be a mechanic. I go call a mechanic. After I read that book, I already know. I don't know enough. And just because you have a book, don't make you an expert, All right, guys, I'm going to post a couple of links here. You guys have been a quiet crowd, but I think most of you are waiting to take your kids and nephews out to go trick or treat. And for those of you that don't believe in that, then maybe you're going to go pick fall leaves and acorns. I don't know. So I'm going to grab a couple of links here, and we're going to close up this video. And no sense sitting here ranting. All right, linkage. Some company information reviews, junk like that. You take a look at it, see what you think. We'll be back, I think, Tuesday. Well, today's Monday, so probably Thursday will be the next time we'll be on. Guys, you have to ask. That's the thing. The video is designed for folks to ask questions. So if you don't ask, you're not going to learn. Sitting quietly in the dark corner of the internet's not going to work. Okay, you won't learn nothing that way. And to be frank with you, we're approaching nearly 700 videos on this channel. That means that a long time ago, I made more videos on the constructive topic of low-income housing, Section 8, vouchers, and the whole gambit. Even more, double that of HUD itself. Okay, the feds. That tells you a lot. And they're all about the subject matter. Okay, I don't just make videos about making cookies one day and then decide I'm going to be consulting the next. All my videos are about Section 8. All right. Many of which are an hour long without taking a breath, talking about federal code of regulation and other issues like Title 24. So, anyways, I want you guys to go enjoy your fall or Halloween day, and then we'll see you back here probably Thursday. All right. You have a good day. Bye bye.